In Sydney South, in the quiet suburb of Peakhurst, a drug investigation meant to dismantle a small-time street operation accidentally stumbled into something far more sinister. What began as just another probe into local drug dealing ended with a body in a river, a chilling cleanup operation, and a lingering question: what happened to Darcy Schafer-Turner? In March 2023, officers from the Regional Enforcement Squad South launched Strike Force Almug, an operation targeting the supply of illicit drugs in the Caringbah area, part of Sydney's southern suburbs. The focus was street-level dealing, and among those on their radar was 22-year-old Darcy Schafer-Turner. Darcy was known to police, young, deeply involved in the local drug scene, and reportedly someone who moved with a certain confidence on the street. He wasn't exactly invisible. However, at the end of April, he disappeared. Police, tracking drug activity as part of their investigation, noticed that Darcy's usual patterns suddenly stopped. His phone went quiet. His movements ceased. He wasn't turning up where they expected him to be. Nobody, not family, not friends, not even customers, had reported him missing. But for the police, his silence was enough to start asking dangerous questions. By May 12th, 2023, those questions had led them more than 450 kilometres north of Sydney to Warrell Creek, near Maxville, on the New South Wales mid-north coast. There, hidden beneath the surface of the water, inside a large metal cabinet, Darcy's body was found. It had been wrapped in plastic, weighted, and dumped with obvious planning and care. Darcy hadn't simply vanished. He had been murdered, and someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure he would never be found. Police didn't need long to identify their first suspect. On May 15th, 2023, just 3 days after discovering the body, officers arrested Darcy's associate and friend, 22-year-old Zachary Richard Fraser, at his home in Peakhurst and charged him with murder and manslaughter. Just days after Fraser's arrest, police moved on their second target, a man far from Peakhurst and at first glance, far from the world of Sydney's drug disputes. On the surface, Charles Dennis Le Marchand Turnbull was a 33-year-old businessman and owner of Brisbane Airport-based aviation services company AAG. But beneath that legitimate front, police alleged, he moved in the shadows of the underworld. In police circles, men like Turnbull are called cleaners, people brought in after a crime, tasked with the dirty work of disposing of bodies, removing evidence and erasing problems. Police alleged that between April 27th and April 29th, 2023, inside his Peakhurst apartment, Fraser assaulted and suffocated Darcy and then called Turnbull to dispose of his body. Turnbull was arrested on May 17th, 2023 in Queensland, but it would be months before homicide detectives from New South Wales would finally secure his extradition to face justice. On September 1st, 2023 in Brisbane Magistrates Court, Turnbull's extradition was granted. He was taken into custody by New South Wales detectives and transported to Tweed Heads Police Station, where he was formally charged with accessory after the fact to murder, stealing a motor vehicle, and improperly interfering with a corpse. According to Detective Acting Superintendent Virginia Gorman, the killing of Darcy Schafer-Turner was brutal. Police believed the motive was drug-related, a falling out, a dispute, or a betrayal between friends in a world where violence is a constant companion to the dangerous trade. Fraser and Darcy had known each other well. They operated in the same circles, but at some point, in late April, their relationship fatally ruptured. While the precise details of how Darcy was killed remain a mystery, with Fraser pleading not guilty and set to stand trial in June 2025, what unfolded in the days after the killing is chillingly clear. Police allege that after Darcy was killed inside his Peakhurst unit, Fraser made a crucial phone call. It wasn't to the police, it wasn't to family, it was to a man he allegedly trusted to clean up the aftermath. Fraser needed a cleaner, and Turnbull was his man. 2 days after the murder, Turnbull boarded a flight from Brisbane to Sydney. His first stop upon arrival, however, wasn't to meet Fraser but to Bunnings Warehouse. Police allege that Turnbull, without hesitation, set about acquiring the necessary tools for the job he had been summoned to perform. Chlorine, gloves, duct tape, coveralls, cleaning products, a cleaner's kit not for dust and dirt but for blood, evidence and human remains. When Turnbull eventually arrived at the Peakhurst unit, Darcy's body was still inside, but Turnbull wasn't finished shopping. Police claim he then took Darcy's own Toyota Hilux ute and drove back to Bunnings. This second trip, according to investigators, was even more sinister. This time, Turnbull purchased a large metal cabinet, a power drill, zip ties and rolls of heavy black plastic. What happened next, police allege, was cold and clinical. Inside the Peakhurst unit, Turnbull began the cleanup. He set about sanitising the scene with chlorine and cleaning agents before wrapping Darcy's body carefully in layers of black plastic. The metal cabinet, newly purchased, became a makeshift coffin. The next morning, Turnbull left Sydney, driving north in Darcy's own vehicle, with the cabinet and the young man's body in the tray, covered with a tarpaulin. His journey north wasn't without further stops. Detectives claim that along the way, Turnbull made a purchase on Facebook Marketplace in Port Macquarie, acquiring a trailer and an aluminium boat. Whether the boat was originally intended to play a role in disposing of the body is unclear, but what police do know is that ultimately, Turnbull settled on a remote spot near Warrell Creek, just south of Maxville on the New South Wales mid-north coast. There, in the middle of Warrell Creek, Turnbull allegedly dumped the entire metal cabinet, body still inside, leaving it to sink and rust away in the shallows of the waterway. Astonishingly, after disposing of the body, Turnbull didn't disappear. Instead, police allege he simply drove back to Queensland, continuing to use Darcy's ute for several days as though it were his own. The ute itself has never been recovered. Police allege Turnbull was paid $20,000 for his role and was offered ownership of the victim's car, an agreed fee for doing the dirty work nobody else would touch. In November 2024, Turnbull appeared before the Downing Centre District Court to face sentencing. In a surprise development, he pleaded guilty to being an accessory after the fact to manslaughter and stealing the victim's car. The victim's family, who had been devastated by the brutal loss of their loved one, had an opportunity to confront Turnbull in court. Darcy Schafer-Turner's mother, Carla Schafer, delivered a powerful victim impact statement in which she described the emotional toll of losing her son in such a horrific manner. She spoke of Schafer-Turner's bright personality, his love for the beach, and how his life was tragically cut short at the age of 22. His sister, Jasmine Schafer, broke down as she told the court about her grief and anxiety. For Turnbull, she said, this might be a prison sentence. For their family, it was a lifetime sentence of pain. In court, Turnbull's defence team painted a very different picture of the man in the dock. They told the court that Turnbull was not a hardened criminal, but a man whose life had fallen apart during the COVID pandemic. His aviation businesses had collapsed, his marriage had ended, and he had spiralled into drug addiction and debt. According to his barrister, Turnbull was recruited into the crime by others higher up the chain. He was desperate. The job, they argued, had been offered as a way to clear some of his debts. Turnbull himself told the court that he had been threatened and felt he had no choice. However, a police interview suggested otherwise. In that interview, Turnbull had allegedly described the work as easy money, a phrase he later tried to distance himself from during his sentencing. Still, the Crown was unmoved by any suggestion of victimhood on Turnbull's part. His actions, they argued, had been deliberate, calculated and disturbing in their professionalism. Judge Grant Brady rejected any suggestion that Charles Turnbull was a man paralysed by fear or acting purely under duress. Instead, he told the court, Turnbull's own actions revealed a man very much in control, methodically problem-solving his way through the grim task he had agreed to carry out for what he himself had called just some easy money. The judge pointed to Turnbull's calculated response when his plan to dispose of the body hit a snag. While Turnbull attempted to sink the metal cabinet containing the body, it floated back to the surface, held up by an air pocket trapped in the plastic wrapping. Despite that, Turnbull didn't panic or flee. Instead, Judge Brady said he calmly retrieved a knife and deliberately punctured the plastic to release the air, ensuring the cabinet would finally sink beneath the water. It was, the judge noted, not the behaviour of a man blindly reacting out of fear, but of someone who knew exactly what needed to be done and how to do it. On December 13th, 2024, Judge Grant Brady sentenced Charles Turnbull to 3 years and 3 months in prison. It was a sentence that reflected Turnbull's guilty plea and cooperation with police, but also the serious nature of his crimes. Turnbull's non-parole period was set at 2 years, with time already served since his May 2023 arrest counting toward that term. He will be eligible for parole in May 2025. For Darcy's family, no sentence could balance the scales of justice. Their son, brother and friend was gone, his body left to rot in a creek, his final moments still largely a mystery. If Turnbull's case was a grim sideshow, the main event still lies ahead. Zachary Fraser, who has pleaded not guilty to both murder and manslaughter, is due to face trial on June 2nd, 2025. That trial may finally shed light on what happened inside the Peakhurst unit between April the 27th and 29th, 2023, and how a friendship between 2 young men descended into lethal violence. Until Fraser faces a jury, the truth remains elusive. For now, all that is certain is this: a young man is dead, another man is in prison, and the question of what really happened to Darcy Schafer-Turner hangs unanswered over the courtrooms of Sydney. This brings us to the end of this case. Let me know what you think below in the comments. If you want more stories from the Australian underworld, please consider subscribing and liking this video. It really helps me out and helps the channel grow. Till next time, take care.